What do you guys want to talk about? Yes, this is going to be a special edition all about the CM Punk media scrum and its fallout. What's going on, party people? It's your bro, Yellaboi, and I'm here with Bros, Brews, and Botches, giving you another new episode of A Shot of Brew. This being the 10th episode of Shot of Brew. We're going to do something really special for you guys. This is going to be a all CM Punk media scrum episode because that's all there is. It's been on the news. I know there's some other stuff that I could talk about, but the only thing that's been dominating the wrestling world is this CM Punk media scrum and its fallout. But before I get into that, you guys, just make sure that you like, subscribe, and share, and make sure you're clicking that notification bell so that you know when the bros are bringing you some new material. And that's new for you people. So also before we get into this, as we're recording today is September the 11th, so at this time I just want to say that we want to give remembrance to those who lost their lives during 9/11, the families that are affected. Our thoughts are with you guys. Just a day of remembrance, 9/11. Remember where you were when that happened. But from that somber note, and without further ado, let's get on with the news. So, as I stated before, this is going to be an all CM Punk episode. And in order to understand what was going on from all the hullabaloo that was with the fallout, we have to know where this all started. So cast your minds, if you will, way back to 2014, where CM Punk was on Colt Cabana's podcast, and that podcast, after he had left WWE and made all kinds of accusations and gave all the dirt. Well, one of the things that CM Punk had mentioned was that he had contracted MRSA after a staph infection or whatnot, and it was due to malpractice by then WWE doctor Chris Mann. Because of that, Chris Mann and his lawyers heard this podcast, which had received over like 1 million views online and over like a certain amount of number on like Spotify or whatever the podcast channel was. They had a lawsuit on CM Punk and Colt Cabana back in 2015. And that was for defamation of character for Chris Mann. Now, some of the fallout that occurred for that was that CM Punk and Colt Cabana filed lawsuits against each other. This was due to Cabana claiming that Punk had offered to pay his legal fees and did not. If you watch the whole media scrum from All Out on the 5th, you would see that CM Punk had made reference to the fees and everything, and some of the things I'll quote later on will have that information in it. However, this is kind of where all the CM Punk and Colt Cabana beef start from. Now, cast your minds back to the Wednesday before Dynamite, and you'll notice that the fans began to chant for Colt Cabana while CM Punk was cutting his promo, which led CM Punk to call out the one guy and told him he had more screws than he'd ever have in his lifetime, his screws in his foot from his surgery, which he then said he probably shouldn't have said that, but I think it was then, and reports from different media sources have said that CM Punk had planned to unload this, if you want to call it pipe bomb, unload this pipe bomb at the media scrum a week or so prior to him going to that media scrum. However, in regards to Colt Cabana, so how this set up, if you've seen the media scrum, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, Then you'll note that a journalist is addressed by CM Punk. I believe his name is Nick. Can't remember his last name, but he addressed Nick and he asks him if he did improv and who does he do improv with. And then he said Scott Colton, which is Colt Cabana's real name. And then he goes off in a tirade, which included Punk saying in regards to Colt Cabana that my problem, quote, my problem was I wanted to bring a guy with me to the top that didn't want to see me at the top, unquote. He also mentions that during the whole lawsuit between each other, that even though it had died out, if you followed it, you know it had died out and they settled outside of court. CM Punk alluded to the fact that they were going to really go into the lawsuit, but after discovering something, they discovered that Colt Cabana had a bank account with his mother. All kinds of stuff. Just go back and watch it. If you want to see the scrum in its entirety in great quality and great sound and not slowed down because some reason AEW's recording of the scrum didn't do too well, go to Denise Salcedo. Denise Salcedo's media scrum recordings are the audio is great, the video is great, she's right there in the front, and you get to see when the security guard running past the scrum with Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland while they were up at top. You can see all that. But anyway, so not only did CM Punk go after Colt Cabana, he then goes after Hangman Adam Page, because what seemingly happened is Hangman Adam Page peed off Punk because of the fact that he had said something in a promo during their feud back in the spring before Double or Nothing, and it wasn't clear by Punk. So Punk went off on him because he didn't like that, even though from some of the accounts backstage that Hangman was just trying to sell the pay-per-view. He didn't look at it as he's saying something. However, in regards to what it was that Hangman Adam Page said that really got to CM Punk, because I know you're wondering, well, what did he really say? So what ended up saying, this was back in May for that build that they had in the feud. It was a promo that Hangman Adam Page said, you talk a big game about workers' rights, but you've shown the exact opposite when you came here. And that was it. Now, people in the know wouldn't kind of connect it to a possibility of Colt Cabana and CM Punk and they're just dang with each other, but I think the majority of casual fans wouldn't put that together. However, Punk interpreted it reportedly as that this was a dig at him for blackballing Colt Cabana. Now, in regards to this promo, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, CM Punk had given his receipt back to Hangman Adam Page by calling Adam Page out. And I talked about this in one of my Shot of Brews a couple weeks ago, that he called him out, and that wasn't scripted. It was something that CM Punk did as a return or a receipt for him calling him out and get back. So what did CM Punk say about Hangman Adam Page specifically? And hopefully in edit I'm gonna bleep all this out, but CM Punk said, what did I ever do in this world to deserve an empty-headed like Hangman Adam Page to go on national television into business for himself? For what did I do? So again, Hangman Adam Page gets targeted out, and he further went into this talking about Adam Page and the Young Bucks, where he was talking about, quote, we have irresponsible people who call themselves EVPs and couldn't manage a target, and they spread lies and bull and put in the media that I got somebody fired when I all to do with him. Want nothing to do with him. Do not care where he works, where he doesn't work, where he eats, where he sleeps, and the fact that I have to get up here and do this in 2022, end quote, unquote. Like, that's a lot to unpack. So he talks about Nick and Matt Jackson because of the fact that, like I said, the promo that was given by Hangman Adam Page was meant to sell tickets. However, CM Punk interpreted it different, and when Nick and Matt Jackson tried to, I guess, smooth it over with CM Punk, that's how he interpreted that. Then he talks about spreading lies and bull stuff to the media. Well, there was an allegation that some of the dirt sheet guys talked directly with Nick and Matt Jackson and Kenny Omega, which in particular Sean Ross Sapp, who reported CM Punk making his return, he got that big scoop on his return. That's kind of what he's alluding to, that Sean Ross Sapp was talking to people, the EVPs in the back, and getting that information. However, Sean Ross Sapp has gone on to say he hasn't talked or spoken with the EVPs, Nick, Matt Jackson, or Kenny Omega outside of doing interviews. So it was a lot, and he called out them. The other thing that he talked about that was kind of questionable was the fact where he said this quote, "But I'm trying to run business. And when someone who hasn't done a damn thing in this business jeopardizes the first $1 million house that this company's ever drawn off of my back and goes on national television and does that, is a disgrace to this industry, it's a disgrace to this company." And that was, he was talking about Hangman Adam Page making that promo again. He really didn't take kindly to Adam Page's comments during that promo. So, and again, for those of you who are calling this a work, this is not a work. This is actually a shoot. From all accounts, it's a shoot. I don't give my opinion a lot, but in my opinion, if it was a work, it's terrible, because this is at the detriment of your company, of your employees. I mean, he's calling out and airing grievances, whether they're true or whether they're not. It's not a good look on behalf of AEW if it's a work. And I bet you're wondering, well, what happened after the scrum? Okay, so I've got a couple of things about that as well, and I'm gonna take them from, it's through Fightful.com. So with Sean Ross Sapp and with Fightful.com, they had a lot of the backstage information on the scrum. So immediately afterwards, Fightful Select says a lot of rumors and details about the AEW post-scrum skirmish have emerged. After CM Punk's AEW scrum, where he buried Colt Cabana, Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page, and others, he returned backstage where we're told an altercation occurred. The EVPs were still in the building, and we're told that there were numerous people that had to intervene. That's where the details of the situation get foggy. Wrestling Observer has noted that CM Punk started the issues by swinging at Matt Jackson of the Young Bucks. So there was a big scrum or a big fight that apparently happened after CM Punk did his scrum. They were saying that in addition to CM Punk, the EVPs getting involved, they said there was a lot of cursing and a lot of mayhem and a lot of people being willing to not being willing to hash it out. That happened. But CM Punk's trainer, Ace Steel, was involved. Larry the Dog was involved. But there were obviously two different sides of the story that occurred. So I find it interesting to look and see this type of thing, of the different vantage points that were made during this scrum. So if you want to look at CM Punk and Ace Steel side of things, and this is also from Fightful Select, it says, after the scrum, the Young Bucks approached Punk's locker room, and Punk wasn't answering the door after having been in a long match, bloodied, and finished with an emotional scrum. The Bucks were said to have pounded at the door with claims that they kicked, quote unquote, kicked the door down. Ace Steel's wife was in the room, which is what Steel had told people set him off and made him go ballistic, throwing chairs and ended up biting someone. The claim made from him was that he was looking out for his wife above anything else. It also said, from what we heard, Kenny Omega didn't seem nearly as upset initially, but things got out of hand and he ended up being bitten. And we're told, Fightful was told that a very long altercation and that the talk back and forth didn't stop after the brawl. So obviously with CM Punk and Ace Steel side of the story is that the Bucks initiated it and some stuff happened. Obviously you did hear that correctly. Ace Steel bit somebody. So it goes on. We have more information regarding this ruckus, and it's the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega side. So sources close, and this again, Fightful Select. If you got $5, go ahead and get on to Fightful Select. If you do, tell them I sent you. But sources close to the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, said their side of things is that the Young Bucks went to talk to CM Punk. Now, as he outlined, they should do in his media scrum. He said that if someone wants to talk to me, I'm here. You can effing talk to me. So that's what they did. But they knocked at the door, and then they opened the door, not kicking it in, as it was claimed by Ace Steel and CM Punk. And before Matt Jackson could say anything, Punk had went off and started throwing sucker punches at Matt Jackson's head. Nick went in to intervene, and Ace Steel allegedly threw a chair and hit Nick in the face, causing a black eye apparently. It says Kenny Omega's involvement was said to be him trying to remove Larry, CM Punk's dog, Larry the dog, from the situation to keep him safe because he was barking and going nuts. Also, the Bucks and Omega side of the story says that once Omega had handed Larry off, he tried to get Ace Steel off of Nick Jackson, and then that's when Ace Steel bit Kenny Omega and pulled his hair. Which this was the only lighter side of the situation, as when asked about the altercation that occurred, and Kenny Omega says that he was trying to get Larry the dog out of the room, and he said he was bit. Instinctively, everyone thought that he meant that Larry the dog bit him, but no, it was Ace Steel. So if you've seen the post on our Instagram where I took had the picture of the guy in the crowd with the sign with the Elite with a bite mark taken out of it, that's exactly why. Now, the story does not end here, obviously. So a little bit more has came out again, Fightful Select. It says that in the days that's followed the recalling of the stories, those that have been in touch with CM Punk and Ace Steel had softened to the stance that the Young Bucks definitely kicked down the door. Instead, they followed up with the idea that they could have kicked, shoulder, or otherwise forced their way in. They said that kicking the door down was clearly a turn of phrase, in that the sense that they should have clarified. And the reason given was that Punk didn't feel like talking to anyone, as he was either getting medical attention or just had been given, or just been given it to take care of his cut. And it says the side also varied on what they've said, because Ace Steel to begin biting and throwing chairs and going from his wife being near to him believing Kenny Omega was attacking CM Punk when he was trying to pull Punk off of one of the Young Bucks. So there's been other news Like, for instance, there's witnesses. Let me first say that what was instantly done was that all individuals involved have been suspended. The Young Bucks, Nick, Matt Jackson, Kenny Omega, CM Punk has been suspended, Ace Steel has been suspended. Also, those that were trying to help break up the fight, which were Christopher Daniels, Michael Nakazawa, and Brandon Cutler, all have been suspended for an indiscriminate amount of time. Additionally, there were, at the end of this past week, there have been eyewitnesses. They're doing a third-party investigation over it, and they're questioning everyone, including the witnesses. One of the witnesses is Tony Khan's second in command. I think she's the head of legal, which is, please forgive me if I say this name wrong, but it's Mega Pereka, I think that's how you say it. She was in the room when this occurred, allegedly, and also one Maxwell Jacob Friedman, or MJF, was in the room as well. So there's also legal ramifications that's going to come from this, which is why there's not been a lot of talk from AEW that's coming from all of this fiasco. But due to that, if you've noticed, this past Wednesday, they have stripped the Trios Championships away from the Elite, who won at All Out, which the match that was already going on this week with Best Friends and Orange Cassidy and the Death Triangle, they just made that into a championship match for the Trios, the AEW World Trios Championships, which Death Triangle won, and now we have Pac with double championships, and they have a Grand Slam Championship tournament for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship as they stripped CM Punk. Now, it's interesting to note that CM Punk would have had to give up his championship because he ended up injuring himself during All Out. It was said that he injured himself on a tope suicida that he gave to Jon Moxley and tore his tricep. So he's out for 6 to 8 months. So he would have had to give up the belt regardless of the fact. But now the questions emerging is if CM Punk will return to AEW. Will he be done with the business altogether? What legal ramifications? What are the Young Bucks going to do? What are Kenny going to do? Because there's a report going out that the Young Bucks had sent feelers out to WWE, because we know that before they got AEW started, they were very interested in going to WWE, and had very custom contracts that Trips was trying to give them. So could they go to WWE? We see that Cody went to WWE. Can the Bucks go there too? Will Kenny Omega go? Who knows? It's just been a lot, and I know it's been dominating everything in wrestling, so I wanted to take this time. This is a little bit more than a shot, but I figured this is a special incident that had occurred, so I wanted to give people who didn't know a little bit more information so that you're up with what's going on when you see this that's happening. However, that's it for the shot of Brew. Once we find out more information upon this situation, you know we're going to post it on our social media. And speaking of social media, if you will, please follow us on all social media. There's going to be a link to our link tree in the description below. To find me, you can go on Twitter to Badass Yellaboi. That's BADAZZ _YELLABOI. Go check out Over Here Boy and all of his 60-second sips on the channel. And you can check him out on all of his social media platforms at Over Here Boy, all one word. You can go check out Hogs Wars on just the one social media platform, and that's at Wampler's Sausage Farm. Go find them. Darn good sausage. I think that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Again, this has been a shot of brew. If you like what you've seen, please give this a thumbs up. Tell somebody about it. Go look at all of our other stuff that we've done. There's probably going to be some links here and here once we get done with this video. So click on either one of these things and check us out. If you're interested in us talking about something specifically in wrestling, something specifically in beer, put them down in the comments down below, and we read them. We let you know, we do read them, and whatever input you have, we'll take it. But thank you for listening to this extended Shot of Brew, the 10th episode. I've been your host for this one. This is Yellaboi, and salute, shots to you, and we'll see you next time.